Welcome to Comfort Zone, a podcast all about pushing your hosts, outside of their comfort zone. I'm Christopher Lawley, and each week I am joined by two incredible co-hosts. As always, I'm joined by Matt Birchler. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's a nice sunny day, and I realized I'm wearing my Kagi t-shirt today, and I didn't really notice it, but with this camera angle, it looks like he's just giving me the side eye all episode.
That's kind of fantastic. We're also joined by Niléane. Niléane, how are you doing?
Hello, I'm fine. And do you know the YouTuber Good Time with Scar?
I don't think so.
He's a Minecraft YouTuber.
Oh,
really
yeah,
like
no.
Him. And his Minecraft skin, his eyes are permanently side eyes. Which is really
That's
fun.
like Animal Crossing, like the Animal Crossing characters where you can like pick the eyes and like you can pick and like pretty much all the options are side eyes. Like all the good option are side eyes. Like the one option where like you're just looking straight ahead looks creepy. So that's pretty great. We got a couple of tiny topic things. Niléane, I think this is all you.
I mean, it's not me. It's our listeners because we have feedback.
Okay.
So last week, remember, I talked about Geneva and public transit in Switzerland. Like, I was wondering, how does it all work? Because when I was there, I've been there multiple times, and every time it's like there's a really relaxed approach to ticketing. Like, there are no checks, and some people even seem to never buy tickets. And so Cedric wrote in to shine some light on what's happening over there. So here's what he said. Here's what he wrote. Hello, first of all, thank you for your show. Hey, thank you, Cedric. Niléane was wondering how public transit works in Switzerland. Here is some information. The Swiss like to follow the rules. It's in their nature. As a little anecdote, my uncle once took the tram in Basel and forgot to buy a ticket. The next day, he bought two. I guess just because he felt bad. I don't know. And he goes on, this is why there are no systematic checks at station entrances or on buses, trams, or trains. However, there are random checks where inspectors come by to check your ticket during your journey. If you get caught without a valid ticket, you'll get a fine of at least around 100 francs. So the francs is the currency in Switzerland. So 100 francs is about 90 euros, I will say. Let me check. No, it's the reverse. 107 euros. And for your freedom currency, that's $124.
Ooh, okay.
And it's a high risk, high reward game. It sounds like then.
Yeah, it's like, look, if I can go a month without buying a ticket, but I only get caught once, like.
Yeah,
that's my American brain.
Once again, we are not encouraging anyone to play this game.
That's like I know somebody who lives in New York City, and they budget 3 parking tickets a month into like their monthly budget because of just like the way it all works. Yeah, it's a whole thing.
And then they linked a link where a webpage where there's all the fines that you risk in Geneva. And they say greetings from Lausanne in Switzerland. So there you go.
Huh.
Thank you, Cedric.
Yeah, thank you. A society built on trust and honesty.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
Insane. I will buy a ticket next time. And I have... actually, when you go to Switzerland, is the funny thing. Because when you go to Switzerland on vacation and you have booked a hotel room, in Geneva at least, all the hotels, they will give you a free transport card for the duration of your stay. So that's why I didn't have to look into it because I just had free transportation anyway.
What's next? Free healthcare?
Yeah.
Sorry, that hit a little too close to home there.
All right. And a certain testing 9136 wrote to us on YouTube in the comments. Remember YouTube? We post on there. There's our faces on YouTube. Yeah, you guys don't know YouTube.
No, never heard of it. What's a tube?
Yeah, no.
I'm unfamiliar.
And that person wrote, "Hey team, in Arc browser, how do you," because we talked about Arc a few weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago, and they wrote, "In Arc browser, how do you or can you import bookmarks on the iPhone?" And so it's a complicated question because like Arc has its own syncing thing, but with its own apps. So you can install Arc Search, which is what it's called, on Android or iOS. And there you will be able to see your sidebars that are on your desktop Arc browser. So you can access your pin tabs on your desktop from the Arc app on iOS. And to do to go the other way, if you want to access a link you have opened in Arc on the iPhone, well, you can't unless you thought ahead and sent that link to yourself. Because like you can in Arc on iOS, you can pin tabs and you can choose in which sidebar you will pin that tab on the desktop version of Arc. And then when you open Arc on your desktop, then you will see the pinned tab that you have pinned from your iPhone. It will have a phone icon next to it. So it's not a two-way syncing really. It just from the iPhone you have to think about it if you want to find that tab later, and from the Mac you will be able to find all your tabs at all times. Hope that answers the question. And I kind of like it in this way because the way that I mostly browse the web on my iPhone is I often send stuff to myself to read them later on my Mac, and which is why I've been using Hyperdoc, which is a small utility that does exactly that. Lets you send links to your Mac, and when you open your Mac, all your links they appear, and so Arc basically has that built in.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Oh, Arc.
It's still going along. Got an update a few days ago. Once again,
Technically not dead.
it's technically
It's
it's a
Chromium
funny
update.
thing because like every week there's an update, like they just update fix bugs and update Chromium underneath, and they have a nice looking page for the release notes, which nowadays just says we updated Chromium. But underneath that, like there actually there's a community manager like trying to entertain the community. They're asking like there's the question of the week. Like Arc users can answer. I don't remember which question was last time, but every time it's sometimes silly, sometimes it's about people's workflows.
Sounds like they're stealing my bit at the end of the show.
Yeah, this is the dichotomy of the browser company. They have some aspects that are so frustrating and so annoying, and then other aspects that are just like they're so good. Like they're not easy to pin down. They don't just suck. They don't just rule. They're a very complicated mix of things.
So as long as they at least acknowledge there are people using the browser, I mean, I guess that's okay. Funny thing, MKBHD once again mentioned that he still uses Arc, and in his preview of the iOS 26 beta, you can see there's Arc Search on his iPhone. So he's even using it on the iPhone. So there you go. Let him be our ambassador to the browser company.
Yeah. Awesome. Well,
All right.
let's get into the main show. Niléane, I believe you had a topic you wanted to discuss with us, something that you're very passionate about.
Speaking of iOS 26, you remember Apple, they unveiled a new design. Language philosophy, or what, I don't know what to call it.
New
Liquid
material.
glass. I just want us to like, yeah, material, yeah, texture. So I want us to just take the time. What are our thoughts on liquid glass? On my end of things, I've started just a few days, last week, I believe, I started maintaining like a thread on Mastodon where I keep adding thoughts to it about liquid glass and screenshots. And so the thread starts with me saying, it only took me 2 weeks to go from really excited about liquid glass to I just want to go back to whatever it was before. Because I think even just not the material itself, I think basically the whole UI, the way it's been redesigned, I find it frustrating. It removes dividers, structural dividers in UI. And at one point I wrote even on iOS, in Safari on iOS, I just want to go back to the good old time when I could tell at a glance where the web page ends and the toolbar begins. Because now the Apple keeps just overlapping stuff on top of each other, and it's, it's really confusing. I've seen screenshots of Apple Music on the Mac float around, which look insane. Like Apple Music on the Mac looks insane in some cases where you know the homepage in Apple Music on the Mac. So it's the same on the iPad, where you have big cards with recommendations and albums you've listened to recently. And when you scroll them horizontally, now they go underneath the sidebar and they shine through the sidebar. But Apple Music also has a second sidebar on the right of the window, which is your queue, the music queue. And it shines through that as well, which means when you have Apple Music on the Mac open now, there are so many scenarios where both sidebars on either side of the window, they will like appear like bright lights screaming at you. And anyway, I have thoughts and not good ones so far. The more I look at it, the more I hate it. And I want to go back. So, what do you guys think?
Well, I have a controversial opinion.
Yeah,
I think liquid glass on the iPhone, iPad, and Mac, I feel differently about it everywhere. Ironically, I think it's maybe the worst on the iPhone. And I think it's here's the very weird complex feelings continue. I think it looks the best on the iPhone, but it also has the most situations where it just is unreadable and tough. So I think the highest highs are on the iPhone, but the lowest lows are also there. I think on the Mac, it looks the worst, but it's the most functional. The music app is insane. I agree. And there's also at the bottom, there's like the now playing section, which also is transparent and is kind of funky. And they've made the timeline scrubber thing like 1 pixel tall. So you have to hover over that 1 pixel, then it gets big enough to actually interact with. It's very strange. So I think it looks the worst on the Mac, but it's also I have no issues using it day to day. I think it's actually pretty fine. And then the iPad is a middle ground. I don't think it ever looks as beautiful as it does on the iPhone, but I don't have any of the issues. I honestly have no usability issues on the iPad that I can think of. It's also the device I use the least, so maybe I just haven't run into them. But like, yeah, I feel differently about it everywhere. This is why transparent UIs are hard. This is why you always start with a transparent UI and it gets less transparent and less transparent and less transparent until it's completely opaque. And then 10 years later, someone's like, I bet we could do a transparent UI, couldn't we? And we do it all over again. I've been around a while. I've seen this happen several times.
Yeah. So I agree with Matt for the most part. I haven't used Tahoe yet. That's the one beta I haven't used because the Mac I'm using is like my stable production machine. I'm not gonna mess with Tahoe right now. The iPad is not bad. The one usability issue I have is I use my devices in dark mode. Safari is doing this thing where like if you load a page and the page is white, like apple.com, it's going to make the toolbar white. But like the URL box might be dark, and like I've sent you guys some screenshots and it just doesn't make any sense. I think it's bugs, but like it's not great. But overall on the iPad, it's fine for the most part. Now, that being said, I had to change my wallpaper to just being this dark image that I use, because without that, you can't read your notifications. Like, notifications are unreadable.
Yeah.
On the iPhone, that's especially egregious because you really can't read notifications if you have like a multicolor wallpaper or a light wallpaper or something like that. Like, I just found like I couldn't read my notifications like that. So overall, I like liquid glass. I like the whimsy bits of liquid glass. Don't get me wrong. I do not like that stuff is fun. I like that. But I think legibility should be the number one thing that the Apple should be concerned about, and that's the worst part of liquid glass. Because on the iPhone, like what Niléane was saying, it's really bad in Safari. I have not enabled the setting. I'm curious if you guys have enabled it, where that gives you the old Safari toolbar back. I know that helps with legibility a little bit, but I'm just trying to use it as it is so I can make my walkthroughs and stuff. So I'm just sticking with it until it actually ships in after my videos, and then I'll probably enable that setting. But the whimsy of it, I love. I love the whimsy of it, like switching between tabs and the little bubble and stuff. That's fun to play with. But it does feel a little sluggish. It feels slow. And on top of that, like it's, I don't, I like just the legibility. And the thing is, if we peek under the hood, Beta 3 was a lot more legible than Beta 1 and 2. Then Beta 4 came out, and then they went back. And I don't know what's going on. I don't know if they're like just testing, like they're trying to figure out like a nice middle ground or something. But legibility is my number one complaint. My second complaint is there are parts of it that feel sluggish, because like you're watching all of these animations and stuff. And while the animations are nice, after, the 10th time of seeing them, it's like, okay, I just want my stuff to be snappier. I just want Safari to be snappy.
Okay, so I think I have two main arguments. And the one thing is obviously legibility.
Mm-hmm.
Big problem. Almost all over the place. And so I don't have an iPad. But on the iPhone, I found it terrible. I just to jump back on. So you mentioned the Safari has an option to bring back the full toolbar on iOS. And I've tried to enable that. And let me just show you what's deeply wrong with this setting. Let me show you just to the screen, and I will try to describe it. But I talked about FanPi last week, right? So with the full toolbar enabled, the UI of Safari looks huge. And it's insane on websites like FanPi, where websites, they have a bottom navigation element that's floating on top of the. So in the end, you have I don't know how much is that? That's 500, 600 pixels of padding at the bottom of the screen until you see the content of your web page. My point is it's huge. This is because it's a floating thing, like it's a floating plateau over the web page, and websites have to work around that area. It looks. I want to say it looks stupid, and I won't say it looks stupid.
I mean,
But
it
does
looks a
look
little
stupid.
stupid. I mean, I think it looked stupid on the old iOS as well, but
I
like
think it
websites
was
that did that because
fine.
it was like you only adding like this many pixels, right? Like it was the same issue on the last one.
Yeah, I think it's the fact that because the web page draws around it.
Yeah,
that's what makes it feel
that's
weird.
true. That's true.
But yeah, so there's the legibility issue on one side, and on the other side, I think, and that's the main argument that I want to make, and so as not to focus especially on the liquid glass aspect of it, is that the redesign is fundamentally flawed in so many ways. And we'll have one example: the sidebars. What is going on with the sidebars? So that's on the iPad and the Mac. To recap, with the OS's 26, the sidebars, they float now. And it doesn't make any sense. Why are they floating? Why on the Mac and on the iPad, the window controls, the traffic lights, why are they inside the floating sidebar? Which makes it seem like you're controlling the sidebar and not the window. And I just want to mention, I should have picked up the link beforehand, but Jason Snell, he previewed macOS Tahoe when the public beta came out. His hero screenshot of his article. I just want to look at this together. Like, honestly, this screenshot, it shocked me. Let me send you the screenshot right now, so we'll look at it together. There. Sent you the link in iMessage. Look at this screenshot of macOS Tahoe. So you will have a link in the show notes as well, listeners. On this screenshot, you have the Photos app in the background, then the Music app, and then Shortcuts. All three have floating sidebars with the new design. Jason Snell on this screenshot also has Spotlight activated. So there's a floating spotlight bar on top of all that. The sense of hierarchy in this desktop UI, it's insane to me. For decades, there was a paradigm in desktop UI where the drop shadows that are drawn beneath windows, they indicate like where windows are and the movable things, where the movable things are on your desktop, right? So now there are seemingly movable things inside movable things, except they are just sidebars, so you can't move them. And they have window controls, which seems to indicate that they are windows, but they're really not. They're not windows. I don't know if I make sense, but that really seems like a fundamental problem that I'm really worried about. Like, I've never had issues with parsing UI. Like, I'm pretty good at things when it comes to computers. And yet, when I look at macOS Tahoe screenshots, I go insane because like my brain cannot comprehend what I'm seeing. Like, what's movable? What's a window? What's a window anymore? Things are floating everywhere. I don't get it. And I think I've identified in this aspect of that, in this aspect of the redesign, I've identified what I find to be fundamentally flawed in a big way. And when you think about the iPhone, it extends to that as well, because on the iPhone as well, things are floating that used to not float. So toolbars, etc. What do you guys think about this? Am I insane?
I don't mind the sidebars.
I'm
Because
insane.
the
maybe. Okay.
sidebars.
Oh,
So
no.
again, I have not used macOS Tahoe, but like I'm looking at it on the iPad right now, and it's fine. Like one of the things that makes the floating thing make sense is the sidebars are collapsible, so you can hide the sidebar if you don't want the sidebar, kind of thing. And when you do the stoplight controls, you know they go to the full files or Finder window or whatever you have open. I don't mind them. Sorry, ducks.
So I'm the only one of us who's actually used Tahoe to any real extent. I've been using it since the day of WWDC because I'm insane. It doesn't bother me at all. Everything you said makes logical sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like I appreciate that. And all I can say is, as someone who's been using it for almost 2 months, none of those things ever occurred to me.
Okay.
When actually using it. So maybe it'll be better once you honestly, the thing in this screenshot that bothers me the most is the dock on the right. I don't know how people live that way.
It goes on the left, people. The left.
But yeah, I mean,
Oh my
it
God.
is. I actually do think, like I said, I think it's the most usable on the Mac, but also the least aesthetically pleasing. I think it's gotten better since beta 1, and it looks better if you turn on dark mode. But like I think everything floating is a little strange. Like you can see it in his screenshot, like um the floating plus button on shortcuts with like a drop shadow with blur of 7,000 or whatever. Like
Yeah.
they just massive blur. It looks, I mean, fine there. It's kind of low contrast for like a interaction element. But if you look at like the Finder by default has 5 of those in the toolbar for like back and forward, the different views,
Just
another
look
one
at the
for
Photos
views.
app in the screenshot. The toolbar in the Photos app.
Yeah, exactly, like that. So like
Yeah.
it's very busy, and like it looks a little sloppy there, or like not fully. It looks like a prototype in a way in some cases. Um, so that stuff bothers me more than I think the sidebars do. But
But I think it's
yeah,
the same problem though. Like they invented the problem because they made things float. that don't have makes that don't make sense in floating. um I just want to point out as well. Um I brought up the spotlight, the search bar that's on this screenshot.
Hmm.
When I look at this specifically, I think maybe it makes my
Yeah,
it makes it obvious what I'm talking about. The spotlight window, it seems like it's part of the Photos app. Like there's no sense of hierarchy anymore. That's really important on a desktop environment, in desktop software. If you bring a raycast in Sequoia, uh, it's really clear because it's a window that that has a drop shadow, as every window does. But the thing is, right now in current UI in Sequoia, there's no drop shadows inside windows, so it's clear what's a window, what's not. I don't know. I guess I'm just repeating myself. I think it really bothers me. Like
yeah,
it strangely really bothers me.
and I think the other thing about like the spotlight in that screenshot is you're not the one who invoked it, so you don't see it coming up. And also those 4 other buttons only
Yeah.
appear if you bring up Spotlight and then move the mouse. That's when those show up. So by default, you kind of get the same Safari or Spotlight that you get today. But yeah, the hierarchy is funky, and when you start to think about it, it does get weird. Because yeah, like something with a drop shadow doesn't indicate it's a window. It also doesn't indicate it's an interactive element. It might, but it might not.
Yeah.
Like in Apple Music, you can click on something, but those look different than the buttons. And yeah, I think if there's one thing I would say about this design is it has thrown away the idea that users need to understand what's clickable and what's just there, and like that they're not using visual indicators to like make it very clear what is what. They're kind of trusting you to figure it out, which is maybe not ideal.
yeah. I get what Niléane is saying, and I agree that like the hierarchy is a little weird. Maybe it's because I haven't used Tahoe, but like on the iPad, I haven't felt that was an issue. Like window, like I understand what Windows active. I understand what's on top. Like Spotlight feels like it's another layer. The one that like I like every beta that comes out, like the first thing I go and look at is I pull up the music app and I go to the home page and I just look at like the toolbar and the now playing and just kind of like see how that goes, because that is kind of like my test of like, okay, what's like the legibility level of this beta? And like right now it's pretty egregious. Like
Yeah,
I
it's
was
not
listening to the
good.
Beastie Boys License to Ill album, which one of the greatest albums of all time. And like I cannot read what song it is. Like I'm just scrolling through the home tab right now and I cannot read what song that is, or and I know it's the Beastie Boys underneath it, but like if I didn't know the artist name, I wouldn't know what it said underneath it. Like that is particularly bad. But Windowing hierarchy, I haven't had an issue with it, but again, I haven't used Tahoe.
All right. Yeah, I've kept saying over the past weeks that I'm worried about the Mac,
Mm-hmm.
about Tahoe, and that was my answer. To everyone, that was my answer. I think it looks so. There's the subjective thing where I think it looks atrocious. I will be very honest about it. I think it looks atrocious, like for real. But even putting that aside, I think there are some really big visual issues with this UI. And why am I worried? Because in the past, Apple has made decisions, UI decisions that were weird. That's not new. But why am I really worried this time is the reason is I don't know how they can fix this. Like, unless they literally roll back things. I don't know how they can fix this. There's nothing that comes to my mind. They make it opaque. Well, okay, then the material is gone. They get rid of floating sidebars. Then on the Mac, probably nothing seems to have changed, and maybe maybe they're worried about that. They want us to see that some things have changed on the Mac as well. And I don't know. I don't think it's fixable, and that's why I'm worried. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I would fix this is they need to get headers and sidebars back. I think that would help immensely. Like, I'm not super bothered by the floating sidebars, but those header areas, like in the photos screenshot there in Finder, those sorts of things, I really think those need just a background and some sort of line indicating this is the UI Chrome and this is the content below it.
Yeah.
But that is going to get rid of a lot of the liquid glass effect, of course, and they love that.
And I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, so I think we will see tweaks to this over time, for sure. But
why are you so calm about? I'm insane. Why are you so calm? We're
the reason
we're 6 weeks away. That's why I'm so worried.
Yeah. The only thing I can say is I've been using it for 6 weeks, and I see people freaking out about it. And if I hadn't seen that, I wouldn't have thought much of it. And so,
okay.
Like, again, I have my personal computer here. I have my work computer on Sequoia, whatever the stock version is. I think my new Mac I think Tahoe looks better, and I feel better using it than Sequoia.
Okay.
So that's why I'm not freaking out. Is all of this makes sense, but I kind of like it.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting. We all kind of fall in different categories. I'm in the middle. Matt likes it. Niléane has.
To be clear, I think the legibility issues, especially on the iPhone, especially on complex backgrounds for notifications, which I know like people like me are more likely to put like a pattern on their wallpaper, but like most people will do like a photo or something. So like photos with complex details and stuff are the main thing people use as their wallpaper, and that's where notifications are hardest to read. So I do think that's a problem, and I don't think it's I feel like people talk about it. I've heard a lot of accessibility talk in the last month or two, which is great. Love to hear it. But I definitely feel like there's an impression that some people have that like accessibility is something that is for people who need, like, I've heard people say this phrase, some people need accessibility. But no. Accessibility is a gradient. Everybody needs something. Like if there's zero contrast and for like text on a background, you can't read it. I don't care how good your eyes are. You can't read it. So, but there's a bar that you need to like cross to like just make sure something is legible at a reasonable level. And I think iOS still falls short on liquid glass on a lot of those places, and they should fix that. Very hard to do when your UI is dependent on the content of the app. But everybody needs accessibility. Everybody needs accessibility features at different times. And just the core operating system should always have a baseline of accessibility in terms of contrast, in terms of target sizes in terms of all these things. So yeah, I think that's the big challenge for it
Yeah.
right now.
Just one last complaint. If you try right now in the public beta to turn on reduced transparency, by the way, since we're talking about accessibility, so it makes everything opaque. So on the iPhone, huh? It makes everything opaque, but everything's a blinking light now. So well done. Just try to turn it on. So it turns the glass material into an opaque material of some kind, but a material that picks up the color that's behind. So if you scroll in the music app with reduced transparency on, the thing will blink like whatever album cover is behind. It will from red to blue to red to green to yellow. It's just a light show down there. So maybe there should be a no blinking, reduced blinking setting. I don't know. Just that was my last complaint. I'm done. Until next week.
All right. Well, I wanted to talk about iPadOS 26. I am back on that iPad bull. iPadOS 26 checked off so much of my wish list. Like I've said, it checked off about 80%. That's not me exaggerating. It checked off a lot. The window management stuff, like if I got to sit down, if Apple came to me and said, Chris, you get to design window management for the iPad, it would be very, very, very close to what we got. I really like it. It's very good. And what I like about it is the flexibility of it. So when you open an app for the first time, it opens full screen. But then you can resize that. You just drag the little handle and you resize it, and now it becomes a windowed app. And if you open other window apps, it'll be right there alongside those. But the key part to this that makes this usable, because this would be really frustrating. Like this would be really, really frustrating if every time you opened an app, you had to resize it. But what's really key to this is iPadOS remembers that window size and position. Always. Doesn't matter if you minimize the app, doesn't matter if you force quit the app, doesn't matter if you restart your iPad. No matter what, it always remembers that window size and position. So if you always want Obsidian taking up 50% of the view on the left side, it will always be there until you, the user, physically move it to another place or physically resize it. It will always be there no matter what. And that, I think, is like the key thing that makes this actually usable. I saw, Matt, you wrote an article and you linked to some other people about like how iPadOS 26 window management, in order to get two apps side by side, takes a lot more steps now than iOS or iPadOS 18 did. I disagree. Because once you've resized that window, it's there. And you can use the stoplight controls, which are a great addition. You can long press on them and you can get two windows to go side by side. You can flip it over to the side, or you don't even have to use the stoplight controls. You can take the window and you just flick it over to the side.
Yes.
And it'll be to the halfway point. But then on top of that, you also, if you have a keyboard attached, you can use globe control left arrow to make it go to the left. You can use globe control right arrow to make it go to the right.
Yes, I know the article you're referencing. I was wondering if you would read that one. Whenever I put iPad or something in the headline, I'm like, I think Chris will read this one in his RSS.
Matt, just so you know, we read everything.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, everything. Every word. And not just like the stuff you publicly write. Like we've hacked your notes and we read all the private notes.
Oh,
too,
great,
so.
great. I have so many drafts I've never published. Now Okay, great.
So you know the terminal I have it set up to show everything you write on
there? Yep, that's something Matt wrote right there.
The screen share thing is on my screen. Why is that on? Interesting. I was lamenting that like it or hate it, at least like the old way of like moving making split screen happen was like this like iPad native, touch native thing, and that now you have to like click 7 buttons to make it happen, or use a keyboard. Had no idea that you could flick it to the
Yes.
side? Because I didn't know. Is that a gesture anywhere else in iPadOS where you
No.
flick an element?
And it's super confusing to get right. Like, I actually had to have Apple like demo it to me and like slow down and like, okay, let me do it.
Okay.
So like you literally take the window and you start a drag and you just flick it. You don't push it to. It's not like Mac OS where you like push it to the side and hold. You literally take it and you flick it. You flick it.
Yeah.
You throw it, and it works. And it's fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just flick it. So like once you have the window open, you flick it.
Why is that so funny?
It's so funny because it's like I'm trying to explain. You just flick it. I don't know. Don't worry about it. You just flick it.
You just flick it. Title of the episode right there. We have the title.
Oh man.
Flick
Okay.
it.
Because I was trying to do the thing you do on Windows on Mac, where you just like drag it to the side, and then like it shows a preview, and then it goes half screen.
I don't know why it does. I know why they don't do that, because that would be slower. Like the flick gesture is actually faster. So you literally just throw it over to the side, and it just takes up 50% of whatever side you throw it to, or the top part, or whatever.
But that's not what people will try to do the first time, though.
Well, people need to watch my videos so they know.
Of course.
That's the problem. People need to
And
watch
read the
more,
math,
and they need to watch it multiple times and click the sponsor links and all that stuff. I'm just kidding. Not really, actually. Watch my videos. But I think this is really good. I like the fact that there's multiple tiling options, and I didn't even mention there's tiling. You can go into the menu bar and get tiling options as well. Like, so there's the menu bar on the iPad now. There's a window section, and there's even more tiling options in there, including a quarter view. Now, here's my complaint. Under the stoplight controls, if you go in there and you have 3 apps open, there is a 3-column view for 3 different apps. That's great. If you go into the menu bar, that is not there, but what is there is a quarter option. So it kind of annoys me that, like, there are some options under one place, but they're not in this other place. Like, both those options should be there. Anyways. But I've actually been using Stage Manager on my iPad again. Now, one thing I love about this windowing mode is when you tap an app, not in Stage Manager, just in the regular windowing mode, when you tap an app, it opens up on top of that, on top of your other apps in your same space. That's fantastic. It works like the Mac. But with Stage Manager, it takes advantage of all the new windowing features, so freely resizable windows, freely placeable windows. You can move stuff wherever you want. You can flick it. You can use the keyboard shortcuts to do the tiling stuff. All that stuff is there in Stage Manager. Stage Manager is now just a layer on top of the new windowing mode. Except when you tap an app, it still opens in a new stage. You have to shift click on an app or drag and drop it into a space. Like, that's annoying. But for the most part, I've actually really liked Stage Manager as a way of organizing my different workspaces. I've basically been using it like I use Spaces on the Mac. I have an admin place, I have a writing place, and I have a creative place. And I have a social media place too. That's been really handy. I've also been using the external monitor support a lot more with my iPad. I used it a bit before, but most of the time, like if I was going to work at my iPad, I'd just sit down with the Magic Keyboard and I'd do it. And I would use it a bit, but I found on an iPad OS 18 and previous versions, with the limitations of window size and window placement, external monitor support was never perfect for me. But now that they're freely placeable and freely resizable, it's exactly what I want. At some points, I even forget I'm using the iPad and I think, oh, this is great, like the Mac. This is the Mac, and it's not. But yeah, it's really, really interesting.
It is wild. When you are using iPadOS 26 on a external monitor, it really looks like macOS. Like it is nearly indistinguishable most of the time. It's crazy.
Too bad it's with the new flawed design.
Oh, we have moved on to the next topic.
Yeah, we are on a different topic.
I am not
Respect
moving on.
the document. Respect the document. But the menu, I touched on the menu bar a little bit. I will say the menu bar is really handy. So the menu bar replaces the feature of where you used to be able to hold down Command and you would see a list of all the keyboard shortcuts. That is now replaced. That Literally, they basically took that from the bottom and moved it up top. Because like if you went into an app like Drafts and held down the command key, you would see categories like File, Edit, and all those other ones that are normally there. So now instead of those just being there when you hold down command, they're there when you push the cursor up to the top or you swipe down from the top. Now, I have seen some people complain that they don't like the menu bar because like it's harder to get to Notification Center. The trick is if you're in tablet mode, swipe down from where the clock is and you don't get the menu bar, you just get Notification Center. Kind of like on the battery side, if you swipe down there, you get Control Center. Or if you're using a mouse, you can click on the clock and you get Notification Center. That's the trick to that. Speaking of the mouse, it's pointy now, which is nice. It's much more accurate. I've been doing some stuff in Photoshop and Final Cut, and having a pointy mouse is great.
Agreed.
It's fantastic.
Low-key, one of the best things.
Yeah, I used to I didn't hate the rounded mouse thing until I started using Photoshop and Final Cut more on the iPad, and then I'm like, okay, this is not accurate. Background tasks is a nice addition. I had to download some very large files from Safari the other day, and the fact that I could just move on to other things and didn't have to leave Safari open, great. I've been moving stuff to my NAS from files, background tasks. I cannot wait for the Final Cut update so that I can do background exports.
Oh, that'll be so good. I like the fact it's a live activity too, because like I think Safari did background downloads, but maybe and sometimes, but like knowing it's happening is good.
That's the thing. Is yes, it did do it technically, but there were definitely times where like Safari would get kicked out. I would move on to other things, and Safari would get kicked out of RAM. And background tasks is supposed to prevent that from happening. So like, for example, on my M4 iPad Pro, I can have 12 windows open at a given time right now. Say Safari was the 12th one that I had used. I had opened up 11 more apps on top of that. I open up a 13th app. It's going to close Safari, but the background task thing, it keeps it in RAM, so it's going to keep downloading those files. That's key.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do apps have to implement that in a
Yes.
specific way? Okay.
Yes, there is an API. So third-party apps can implement this. Final Cut will be getting an update when all this stuff ships. So right now on my iPad, even though I'm using Final Cut Pro for the iPad, I don't get background tasks because I need that update. Apple sent me the test flight. The dock. The dock got like a couple of minor upgrades, but like very nice. So on my 13-inch iPad Pro, which is the one I've been using the beta on, I have no idea if I'm going to stick with this one or go to the 11-inch again. There's things I miss about the 11-inch. There's things I love about the 13-inch. iPadOS 26 is definitely best on the 13-inch iPad Pro. But the dock, so on my 13-inch iPad Pro, I can put up to 26 apps in the dock. Plus, I have 3 folders in the dock as well. I have my Documents folder, my Downloads folder, and my Video Projects folder. So I have 29 items plus the app library icon as well. So I'm guessing what the limit is you can have 30 icons in the dock now, which gets really small in portrait mode, but it's still very usable. If I'm holding my iPad in portrait mode and I tap on Todoist is what's going to open.
I have one question actually, Chris.
Yes.
30 icons and 12 windows. When will it be enough?
Honestly, that's enough for me.
Okay,
That's
well,
perfect.
great.
I'm good. I'm actually good with that. Like, I was bummed when I found out there was a window limit, but then I started thinking about it. I'm like, I don't even think I have like 12 Mac windows open at once.
Yeah.
Like maybe in different spaces and stuff, but like that's where going back to Stage Manager, I can have 12 windows open in one stage. Then I can have another 12 windows open in another stage. And then I can have another 12 windows open in another stage. So that's where like kind of, I've been using Stage Manager as spaces and stuff.
Well, that's good. Out of curiosity, I'm a filthy Mac user and I use a lot of
Yes, you
Windows all the time. And so I was curious, how many windows do I have open right now? 12.
Ah,
Oh,
So
I want
I'd
to
be
know
fine
as well.
interesting.
1, 2, 3.
But well, Niléane counts. I'm kind of curious how many she has open. I'm gonna guess in the 20s.
18.
Ah, I was
18.
close.
Okay.
I
Okay.
was
So still not enough for
close.
Niléane. Maybe another
Most of
year.
them are hidden though. I hide maps a lot.
Okay, so that's the thing is when you're using these, and so instead of you don't really hide windows on iPad OS. You minimize windows. So you'd use Command M, and it's still there. It's still going. As soon as so say I was to hide Obsidian right now. If I was to hit Command M, I have Obsidian open. Obsidian would be minimized. And then when I want Obsidian back, I just click on it, and it's going to bring it back right into that space or right into that same content that I had opened when I minimized it. So it's kind of the same thing. One of the new apps in iPadOS 26 is Preview. There's actually a few apps. There's the phone app, there's the games app, and the journal app, and Preview. So there's 4 new apps. I just did the inglorious, can't say the word, thing. I love the Preview app. The Preview app is great. It's exactly what you would expect from the Preview app, exact what you would expect from like Mac OS stuff. It pairs great with the Open With feature. So in Files now, you can right-click on a file, and you can do Open With, and you can select all the apps that you have installed that support that file type. So if it's a PDF document, all the PDF document apps that are there, Preview is one of them. But then you can take it a step further, and you can go into Get Info, and you can set default apps for file types.
That was going to be my question. I was like, is it on a one-by-one file basis, or I can just say, always open this file type with this app?
It's just like the Mac. So you can, when you go into Get Info and change the app, it's going to ask you, do you want to change it for just this file or for all these file types? Just like the Mac. It's fantastic. So what this means is when I have a JPEG in Files and I click on it, it doesn't open it in Photos anymore and mess up my Photos library. I can have it open in Preview now, which is fantastic. It's great. Great. Love it. The local recordings feature is really interesting. So podcasters, video people can do stuff locally. I actually haven't used this yet. I need to.
Yeah.
I need to do something with it.
It's actually on the iPhone as well. If you go into Control Center, you can enable it and you can do it. It seems like, I don't know, I haven't done it either. I don't know if apps have to actually upgrade to it, but it seems like you basically start it and then it waits for a video call to start.
Yes. So from what I understand, like Zoom and stuff are already working. So I have an idea of something I'm going to do with this over the summer. I just need to talk to the person and get it going. But that is a really killer feature that I need to play more with. But there are some things that iPadOS 26 didn't check off for me. And the big one is third-party apps. Apple needs to bring developers back to the iPad. Developers have been neglecting the iPad. And honestly, it's kind of Apple's fault. They need to open up the iPad even more. Stuff like, I need Chrome on my iPad. There's just too many things that Safari doesn't support. I need Chrome on my iPad. We record
you need
this.
Arc.
Or Arc, Chromium. Just give me a Chromium browser. Give me a Chromium browser because we record this show in Riverside. I need that. I need Chromium for all my mechanical keyboard VIA stuff. Chrome is too important not to have now. An app I use on the Mac almost every single day, Hush, to clean up audio. That's not on the iPad. I mentioned Riverside already. A better transcription utility, but Matt's kind of working on that for me. Thanks, Matt.
Oh, I talked about it. Never mind. Yeah.
You've already talked about it.
Yeah.
I know. I almost didn't put it in the show notes, but then I was like, wait, he's already talked about it. And like, there's so many Final Cut features that are missing. Like, there are so many things in Final Cut Pro for the iPad that are missing that the Mac version has. It literally, like, stuff you just would take advantage of. The big thing that I always harp on is the ability to copy effects from a clip in the timeline and paste it to another using keyboard shortcuts.
Mm-hmm.
That is not there, and it surprises me every day.
Yeah. Chris, do you know what I think the best feature in the world would be for the iPad?
What's that?
On the Mac, you can
God.
run iPad. No. This is not a joke. This is not a bit.
Okay.
Although, you know what I want.
I do know what you want.
But on the Mac, you can run iPad apps, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think, and I know it would be incredibly tricky technically to do, and I think it would be messy, and not every app would work, and it's hard. But it would be so awesome if you could run Mac apps on your iPad and maybe check a box that says, no idea if this will totally work, but I think
Have
it would be so great
Yes.
to make this happen.
I think Apple's getting there. I honestly think there will be, like, look, we have universal apps between iPhone and iPad. I think the Mac will get there one day.
Yeah, and the Mac
where
too.
It'll
'cause,
be
yeah,
you write one app and it goes to all the Apple platforms.
yeah. Well, not even that exists. Like the app that I like the
True.
those like I just write one app and the UI changes based on the platform, and that's already working. I'm talking about these people who are never going to write an iPad app. They're just going to make an iPad app. Maybe it's an Electron app that, whatever, they're just not bringing it to the iPad. Bring it over here. I think it was cool to get some more apps. I think the idea of the like compatibility mode for those iPad apps on the Mac was to get like more apps on the Mac, so that. But like I feel like the actual problem is the iPad needs the apps. We need to get the Mac apps on the iPad.
Well, that was the thing, is at that time the iPad was getting all the apps. Now the Mac is getting all the apps.
Yeah, Apple Silicon was so good, and it brought the Mac back.
Yeah, it devastated the iPad app economy, and like now, like there's not really interesting apps because like there's all this stuff coming out for the Mac, like the people that used to do workflow and shortcuts and stuff like that. They're making a automation utility called Sky. That is just coming to the Mac. And it's because Apple doesn't allow stuff like that to happen. Apple doesn't allow, apps like Raycast or Hazel and other automation utilities, menu bar apps, terminal. Like there's so many things Apple doesn't allow on the iPad, and Apple needs to loosen up a little bit when it comes to the iPad so it can get these apps like that. And I know Apple wants you to have a Mac, an iPad, and an iPhone, but that's too much. I do not like having more than 2 devices. When I have more than 2 devices, I get like that I feel overwhelmed. Like I'm like, okay, I got to keep all these things up to date, and I changed this app, so I got to change it on all these. No, I just want 2 devices. I want my iPad and my iPhone is what I want. I really don't want to use a Mac anymore. I'm really happy with iPadOS 26. Yes, there is more that I want, but it is such a good foundation. It kind of feels like iPadOS 26 is rebooting the iPad.
Ooh,
that's what it feels like.
There's your video title.
Yeah, actually, yes. I'm going to write that down. Nobody steal that. Nobody is allowed to use that. Trademark Christopher Lawley.
I'm publishing my review next week, even though it's not out yet. I'm breaking all the rules. You'll still get way more views.
So, about those floating sidebars then.
Oh my god.
I think we need to get to the challenge.
Let's do
unless you guys have thoughts on iPadOS 26. If there's something you want to mention.
I had one thought. It's not really a complaint, just a thought. Because it seems I complain every day now. No, just a thought on the iPadOS. I think it's really strange and interesting that so now you have free floating windows everywhere, all over the place, but there's no desktop. Isn't that strange?
It's the home screen. I wouldn't
not really though.
I wouldn't be surprised if the home screen for the iPad gets rethought in a future update, whether it's 27 or 28. I wouldn't be surprised if it's pretty soon that the home screen of the iPad gets updated. But Apple knows what works is widgets. Honestly, I don't mind not having a desktop. I never save stuff to the desktop anyways. What most people use their desktop for, I have a folder in my documents folder called _temp, and that's where all like my temporary stuff goes.
Oh man.
So,
oh god.
You've got your life put together more than most people.
Yeah.
What I have is a downloads folder with 800 files in it.
Oh god. Oh.
You should not be allowed to have storage.
My downloads folder has 9 items in it.
Wow.
Mine is empty.
What?
Oh, I empty it every day.
Usually mine's pretty empty, but I actually have something I'm working on right now that like those folders those files are being used. So, nice. Well, let's get on to the challenge. Matt, it was your challenge.
It was my challenge, and I think I think I really had a good one here. So the challenge was bring your unpopular tech takes. One thing, so two takes, one thing that you think is better than most people think it is, and one thing you think is worse than most people think it is. And ideally, this is for like our circles of tech, not necessarily just like most people in the world think, I don't even know. So I can get us going. I will start with the positive. And the thing I think is better than most people think is this.
Oh,
The iPhone 16e.
Ah.
I think when this came out a few months ago, it was basically considered a complete failure that isn't made for anybody and is way behind in tech. And some of those things are true. But I think if you don't really care about your phone that much, you don't need to be on the bleeding edge. You don't want to spend $1,000 on it. You just want a phone, specifically an iPhone, that's going to last years. I think this is a good buy. It's got the latest, it's got the same chip as like an iPhone 16 minus one GPU core. It's going to last you for years. It'll get software updates for a long, long time. It has a modern design, not the dynamic island, but like it's not like the old SE that was very
Oh, that's a
behind.
very good point. It's getting liquid glass.
And it's getting liquid glass.
Oh God.
But I think it's a really solid phone, and like I used it for a month, and it was, I mean, fine. I missed things because I like nice phones, but like it's well made. It looks clean. Like it's a very capable phone. You can spend less money on like a Android, like a more budget Android phone, like a Pixel 9a or whatever. And that'll get you a higher refresh display. This has great battery life as well. It's the best battery life outside of the 16 Pro Max in the lineup, which is great. But yeah, but like the processor in these lower price Android phones, the battery life is usually not as good. And so I think it's just an all around good phone. It's maybe not for you if you're an enthusiast, but like I think people who buy this phone will largely be quite happy with it.
Yeah, I agree with your take.
Ooh,
Yeah.
I didn't
I
choose
still
it.
think it's $100 too much, but
I think if it was $100 cheaper, then there'd be the whole vibe would be different. I don't know,
yeah,
but
yeah.
something that's worse than people think. Safari.
I knew it. I knew he was gonna pick Safari.
I think Safari is not as good as people in our circles think. So specifically our circles. I know we have a lot of Safari fans. Some of them might even be on the call with me right now. I think Safari is slower. It used to be faster than Chromium. Chromium has since taken the lead in performance. Chromium is faster. It adopts standards quicker. I don't know what is going on with Safari extensions. Whenever I see someone complaining about an extension, I always ask them what browser they're using, and it's always Safari. Why are extensions apps that you have to download from the App Store? Like it's so frustrating. Doubly frustrating because a couple years ago they said we're like adopting the kind of industry standard for how extensions work, but like you can't just use other extensions. You still have to package them into an iOS app and get them through app review, and that's frustrating. And there's just bugs. There's bugs that have been around forever. Did you know that technically Safari can have the text focus be in multiple text fields at once? It's annoying. It's usually not an issue, but if there's iframes on the page, you can theoretically have focus like the focus be in multiple places at once. They may have fixed that in the past year or so, but like this was an issue I had in 2018 on a project I was working on, and they just didn't fix it for years, and so we had to do special code for Safari. Yes, several times I've had to do special code for Safari because Safari is weird, and Firefox is weird. Anyway, I don't think Safari is as good as people like to think it is. So there's my sassy take.
That's some hot takes there.
So about Safari, I agree. I sadly agree because it's objectively my favorite browser, and I've been using it the most for the past decade. and what I like about it is no longer enough, and it's part of why I'm not using Safari right now. The things that I like about it are not enough anymore. So what I like about it specifically is the UI. I found it
Yeah.
to be very very simple and very clean.
Mhm.
And I'm the kind of person that I only have one tab open at once, or like a handful, and I open and I close tabs as soon as I'm done with them. And Safari is good for that in terms of UI. But I
Yeah.
agree, it's slow. And lately, I've been like really, really banging my head against my desk, because of performance issues on web pages, on websites. And I just try them in the Chromium browsers, and everything works fine. Even in the Firefox based browser, everything works fine. So clearly something's wrong with 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 WebKit and Safari.
Yeah. And let me clarify. I think Safari is actually pretty good on the whole. This is not like, oh, it's Internet Explorer bad. Do not take me as saying that. I leaned into the things I don't like about it, but I think Safari is a pretty good browser on the whole. Just there are things about it that make it more frustrating for me to use than. It makes me feel like I have a different experience than other people who seem to really, really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. With the iPad, I'm just stuck using WebKit browsers.
So those are my hot takes.
Nice. I like them. You mind if I go next?
Yes.
Please.
So the positive thing, the thing that I think is better than what most people think, I'm going to say files. Files on the iPad and even the iPhone has gotten a lot better since it originally shipped in iPad OS 13. 13? I'm going to say 13. Might have been 15. No, I'm pretty sure it's 13. It has gotten better every single year. When it originally shipped, it was bad. It was really bad. But it has gotten better. I like it now. I've been using an iPad OS 26 and I haven't had any issues with it as far as like not being able to load content or anything like that. There's a few things that I do. So one thing I do is I have a 2 terabyte iPad Pro. I keep all my files local on the iPad. I do that on my Mac as well. I don't like the whole like, oh, we'll offload some of your stuff and we'll keep it in iCloud and not. So that might be one of the things that helps me a lot is all my stuff is locally on my iPad. The other thing, there is a fairly big tech YouTuber who I cannot stand, who keeps claiming that Files is bad because it doesn't have an eject button for media cards and external drives. Apple has stated multiple times, I have stated also, because I've talked about it multiple times, that it doesn't need an eject button. They wrote it from the ground up for modern computers. You don't need an eject button for it. So stop claiming it needs to eject button. You know who you are, not that you listen to any of my stuff, because
is there really not an eject button?
There is not an eject button. You don't need an eject button.
That's funny because there's one on my network drives.
Yeah, on the network drives there is an eject button on iPad OS for some reason. Or no, wait. Yes, there is. But you don't need it. You don't need the eject. I don't know why on network drives there is an eject button.
Yeah, I can see
on iPad OS, but like you don't actually need it. I don't know why.
I never realized there wasn't one for
media
drives.
Cards and external drives. Don't need it.
Okay.
It's gotten a lot better. There are things I want Files to get. There are things I want it to do better. One of the things I really want it to get is tabs. But yeah, it's gotten a lot better. The search has gotten a lot better. I would say, especially if you have your files local, search is pretty fast in Files. At least from my experience, I'm able to find stuff that I want pretty quickly. So that's the thing I like that I think is a little bit better.
I like it. I respect this choice. I agree with you. It's gotten better over time as well, especially this year. Lots of nice things in it. So
there's a lot.
Yeah. There's definitely before the Files app and after the Files app, and the iPad. There is this idea that you don't need files anymore on an iPad, but like you need files.
You need files. Yeah, I'm glad Apple has walked that back. The annoying thing is because of the whole era of you don't need files, in the iCloud Drive folder, you have a bunch of applications that stored their own files for a while, and you can't quite get rid of those. That I find frustrating, but that's Apple's fault. That's not File's fault. The thing I think is worse than what most people in our circle think is the studio display.
Yes, my guy.
I struggled with this one. I was kind of looking around my office, and I was like, what is something that's like worse than what most people think? And, I almost put in the Vision Pro or something like that, but then I saw the studio display. And I love my studio display. Don't get me wrong. I do love my studio display, but it's expensive. I looked it up. The studio display that I have is the regular glass with the height and the tilt and height adjustable stand. I spent $2,000 on that.
Yeah.
And it has an LCD panel.
A high refresh rate one, though, right?
No, it does not. It is a 60 hertz LCD panel, and the black levels do not look great on it.
Well, it's HDR at least, right?
No, it is not true HDR. It's HDR. Apple says it's HDR. It is not true HDR. I tried watching, I don't remember why. I tried watching like a movie on this once, and I didn't even get like 5 minutes into the movie before I turned it off because I'm like, does not look good. It is insane that Apple in 2026 is charging $2,000 for an LCD monitor with these levels of this black level with this refresh rate. Okay, it's 5K. That's really nice. It's proper Retina. That's really nice. We've gotten into, there are other Retina monitors out there. Matt's covered that.
If I stand here, it's Retina. If you stand far enough away, any screen is Retina.
Yeah. But I spent $2,000 on this thing, and I was like, well, what else have I spent around that kind of money for? And for not quite $1,000 more, I got my really fancy 77-inch LG C whatever OLED 120 hertz TV. That thing is a beast compared to the studio display. And yeah, it was almost $1,000 more, but you get a lot more bang for your buck. Not that I'm saying use a TV as a monitor. Don't use a TV as a monitor because that's bad. But I'm just saying that I feel I feel a lot better about spending that much money on that TV than I do spending $2,000 on this monitor. Now, I will say the one nice thing about the studio display is it has Thunderbolt going from the display to your computer, but there is three USB-C ports on the back, and they're a full 10 gigabit per second connection. Not very many monitors can say they have that. Not even the Pro Display XDR. Pro Display XDR, those USB-C ports on the back, they're USB 2.0 speeds. So anyways, that's my spiel.
Nice. I obviously fully endorse this as someone using an OLED monitor that I'm very happy with. Lower resolution, doesn't have the inputs the same way, but I was listening to, I think, Upgrade with Jason Snell. Jason Snell, friend of the show, becoming.
Oh, yeah. No, I hung out with Jason Snell at WWDC. Absolutely friend of the show.
Excellent. But he was talking about the LCD panel that's in use in the current studio display is effectively the same one that they've had since the 2013 iMac.
Since the Retina iMac was introduced, the Retina 5K iMac, it is the same panel. Yep.
So, yeah. My take on it is the studio display is totally serviceable, but it's also the most expensive display in the market, effectively. Consumer display in the market.
Except, second most expensive display.
Yes. But yeah, so it's due for an upgrade. I'd love to see a nicer studio display.
It needs to be at least mini LED and at least 120 hertz. Yeah. But ideally, it needs to be OLED. But I have a feeling that's going to be, because the Pro Display XDR is mini LED right now. I have a feeling that gets bumped up to OLED, and the studio display gets bumped up to mini LED. That's my theory.
All right, excellent. These are good takes in the spirit of the challenge.
Cool.
So why are you saying that?
Well, I'm just kind of, so far, 2 out of 3, not bad. I mean,
Chris has a history. Well, I have a history of not following the challenge.
I am not the only one. I refuse to be singled out here.
Chris once or twice has not done the challenge.
Well,
Just-
you're not. If you're gonna try and make me listen to Coldplay,
Yeah, you'll never forget that one.
okay. Side note: Coldplay finally did something right. Like they finally actually did something by getting those people that were cheating together, like highlighting them for the first time in any member of Coldplay's life. They finally did something good. And you know what? I'm gonna include all their parents too and their grandparents because reproduction gave us Coldplay. Thanks. They should be tarred and feathered for that. But finally, first time any member of Coldplay has actually done something useful with their life is, brought all of America together over that. So, yeah.
I mean, they probably donated to charities and stuff.
Yeah, but it's with Coldplay's money, so it's like...
It's dirty money.
It's dirty money. Like, I would rather take mafia money, like money that's been laundered than money from Coldplay.
This is your most chaotic take.
Makes sense, yeah.
I had to do something after being reasonable for the challenge.
Niléane, what do you have?
Okay, so my two takes are about liquid glass. No, just kidding.
Have you seen the sidebars?
The sidebars are insane, guys. No, so I think IKEA desk accessories are better than most people think.
Agreed.
Is my first take.
Hard agree.
And I don't even have something specific. Like they have lots of bits and bobs. On my desk right now, for example, I have a small bamboo holder where I have pens and all the. I will not show you because there's a bunch of personal effects in there, but it's just under my monitor. It's really small, and it's tiny, and it's cute, and it looks like bamboo. So bamboo looks cute, and they have small tablet stands as well, the bamboo as well, as at least bamboo-like. I don't know if that's real bamboo, but whatever. And they're really nice to hold up your iPad, and they have even something for a laptop. So if you need a cheap bamboo-looking laptop stand for your desk, they have one. And I've mentioned this before, but I want to mention it again. IKEA is a great deal for cables. So Chris, 2 weeks ago, you wanted to sell me a cable. I don't need to be sold a cable because I already buy my cables at IKEA. They're colorful. Chris just renounced saying something. The IKEA cables, they're colorful. They are what's that called when they have textile over the
like braided cable?
Braided, that's the word. They are braided cable, and they renew the colors every so often. So if you go
nice.
at different seasons, they will have different colors available. USB-C. They still sell lightning cables if you need those, and they are MFI certified, if that's any value to you. And great deals on cables. And also in terms of lighting, they don't have any fancy options. Like they have light strips that you can just decorate your desk space with, but they are very basic light strips. I don't believe IKEA sells a smart light strips as of now. They just have boring regular light strips, but that you have to connect regularly and turn on and off manually, but they're nice and they're cheap and they work well. But even besides light strips, they have nice looking desk lamps. I think anyway, I will stop there. Just in general, IKEA accessories, they're pretty nice, and people should stop demeaning them. At least not as much.
Not as much. No, this is
Not
good.
as much.
I agree. Like you can get some good stuff from IKEA. Like when I started off doing YouTube, I bought like a fairly cheap-ish IKEA desk, and it worked out great for me for a long while, like for what I needed. So yeah.
Yeah, I still have an IKEA desk, by the way, because I needed a small IKEA desk when we moved in. So I still have the same one with 2 drawers. I believe it's called the Alexa. So it's a small one with 2 drawers. And it's really nice.
Nice.
Yeah. And Oh, and still talking about desk, they sell things that you hang underneath your desk to hold all the cable mess that you may have
Oh
underneath
yeah, I
your
have
desk.
that under my main desk. I have two of those.
Well, yeah, IKEA ones you have?
Yeah, like the racks.
Exactly, yeah, the racks.
Yep.
So you buy them and you can screw them underneath any type
So
of
great.
desk. So that's really useful. There you go. I'm done. The second take is Apple Notes is worse than most people think.
Ooh.
And my arguments are, firstly, the UI. I hate it.
I agree.
My first argument, I hate you.
I hate it. So the UI, especially when you're formatting text, lately I've been needing to format text inside Apple Notes, and everything's buried. Like they bury things as deeply as they can in those submenus, and it's cool when you don't need them, when you use Apple Notes for basic note taking, when you're not formatting anything and just using bold and italicize or whatever. But once you start getting into bullet points and needing to change the format of the bullet points and needing to turn those into check marks, whatever, check mark bubbles, and add tables. The tables, boys. In Apple, I had to fight them with my fists the other day.
I'm starting to think Niléane doesn't like any UI and just wants to use like Terminal for everything.
Well, that's not. That's not true. So
I'm kidding.
I have a counter example to that, which is Google Docs. Like Google Docs looks horrible, but everything's laid out. Like everything's there. You will find it. If it's they have a menu bar sort of like file edit, whatever. You will find it in there. They have a search bar, just like in the macOS menu bar. You can search through menus, and otherwise the default toolbar that's just there. It has a million buttons, but if you used Google Docs for more than 2 months in a row, you know everything where everything is. And I notice right away when Google moves a button in there because there's like a muscle memory. But I cannot build a muscle memory in Apple Notes because everything is buried into right clicks, into submenus, into drag things that are that need to be dragged. The tables, like the table, you have to drag rows. It still doesn't really make sense to me how the tables work in Apple Notes. Basically, I like top level UI, like things.
Yeah.
Don't bury things, please.
Okay. At first, I didn't agree with you, but when I understand kind of what your complaint is this mostly on the Mac that you're annoyed with it?
I never use Apple Notes on my iPhone, just when I need to just look up something that I've typed in on my Mac.
Okay. So I actually, a better hot take than the 16E is pretty good, would have been that Google Docs and Google Sheets are actually incredible, because I know a lot of people don't agree with that. On a Mac.
Chris is
on the iPad, if you
I know.
go to Google Docs or Google Sheets on the iPad through Safari, you get the little thing at the bottom that says, "Oh, you should try our app." And if you hit no thanks, it does nothing.
Oh, that's still here?
Still a
I remember
thing.
this bug from 5 years ago.
And on iPad OS 26, Google Docs is the brightest thing ever. It is brighter than the sun because it's white, and then it makes the Safari UI toolbar white, and it's just pure white. It's pure, what is it, like pound 0000, or is that black? I don't remember.
Yeah.
FFF, yeah. It's just pure white. It is the brightest thing I have ever seen in my life.
Oh my God. Okay.
I literally had to do something in Google Docs, and I had to turn down the brightness on my iPad.
Hey, it's almost like the new design is flawed. Like maybe Safari shouldn't pick up the color from the webpage.
Anyways.
You have inspired a quick little game. This is for both of you to answer. So I'm going to tell you one keyboard shortcut, and you're going to tell me what the next keyboard shortcut is. So in Google Docs, to take a line of text and turn it into an H1 heading.
I don't know.
It's
Command Shift H.
It's Command Option 1.
Oh.
Okay.
What do you think the keyboard shortcut to make a secondary heading is?
Command Shift S.
Option
Niléane.
2? Command option 2?
Command option 2. And
Oh,
heading
okay.
3 is
Oh,
command
that-
option 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh,
and
there's no trap.
It makes
Okay.
sense. I thought you were going in
Yes.
the direction of it doesn't make sense. Okay.
Now, well, the keyboard shortcut to create a heading, an H1 heading in Apple Notes is
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Tell me.
Yeah.
Command. What? Command Shift H.
Yeah.
Okay.
What
Yeah.
makes a subheading under that?
Isn't it Command Shift S?
Is it
Niléane, do you
command
have a
shift?
guess?
I'm trying right now live. Oh, heading. Okay, yeah. And what's your question? Secondary?
Second heading. You want a heading
Yeah,
under
because they
that?
call them subheadings. They don't call it's not like H2 or something like that. They call
It
them
is called a
subheadings.
subheading. But it
So I
can't
think
be
it's
Command
Command-
Shift S because that's save as.
Oh, maybe. Oh, is it
Oh,
Command
nice.
Option S?
It's Command Shift J.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay, sure.
This has real Apple Mail keyboard shortcut energy, in my opinion.
This is why even when I write in notes, I still write in Markdown.
Mm-hmm. Anyway,
Yeah.
I just thought that was a
Yeah,
fun
that's
game
not
because I was
good.
like, yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, but see, I'd never use keyboard shortcuts in those apps. Like I click the buttons, so I don't even know them, even in Google Docs.
It's really nice whenever you paste something and it's like you pasted a heading or something from another doc and you paste into Google Docs. It's just supposed to be a paragraph. Just hit Command Option 0 and it turns into plain text.
Oh.
nice.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, okay.
Okay.
Interesting. Learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Well, I think we did really good on this challenge, Matt.
Yes.
I think we did. I'm very proud of everybody.
Yeah, I think we all had some spicy takes. Niléane, it is your challenge for next week. What do you got for us?
Okay, so I have a challenge. It's a suggestion, and I have a question to enhance it, if you will. Okay.
Okay.
So the prompt is for next week: downgrade something about your music listening setup.
Ooh.
But here's my suggestion that maybe we could spice it up, but it could be too difficult. What if it was downgrade something about your audio setup in general?
I think I would still probably go to. No. Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. It could be.
That would
I'm good with
include
that.
microphones.
Oh no, let's not mess with recording. Let's as the editor of the show, I veto anything that messes with the recording that makes my life harder.
Okay. But still, it could encompass more things.
Yeah, it can encompass a lot because now you have listening to podcasts, listening to music.
Yeah.
It could be video calls, stuff
Okay,
like that. That
What's
aren't
the
comfort
exact
zone.
wording?
So we're changing it. Downgrade something about your audio setup.
Downgrade something about your audio setup.
So it could be your headphones.
Okay.
Software that you use, a streaming service. I don't know.
Apple Music to Spotify, for example.
You define what's a downgrade, but it has to be a downgrade for you. Like,
Okay.
and my hope is that maybe we come out next week with a nice story. Like I thought that was a downgrade, but turns out I like it or something
Yeah.
like that.
I like it.
Okay.
I like
Or
it.
maybe we'll all be really hungry. So
No, this is a good one. This feels like a theme challenge that we could do again.
Yeah.
Downgrade
yeah.
your
whatever.
Downgrade your keyboards, downgrade your mouse, downgrade yeah, all sorts of different things. Yeah, this has got my brain thinking. Cool. I like this one.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this brings us to the end of the show, and as always, I have an end of the show question for you guys. And I want to know what your favorite office decor item is. Like something that decorates your office. What do you got?
I got this. I showed it
What is
already
that?
once.
Oh, yeah.
It's a knitted sushi.
Oh, okay, cool.
A friend made it for me a few years ago, and now it sits on top of my Belkin Thunderbolt dock, which means it's really hot.
Nice. I think for me, because Matt's looking at his office, I have a toss up for me. I have probably my favorite item because it was the hardest to get. And I need to put it in the office now because I gave Danielle the office area and it's a library, so I need to put it in the studio now. But probably my YouTube silver plaque You know, I worked really, really hard for this thing.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Like, this is probably, like, you know, if I'm going to flex something, this is probably it. This was really hard to get. And they don't come in this size anymore. If you get them now, they're small.
Oh.
And I just got this. Danielle got me my Lego White Whale, which is the diorama Star Wars set that is the trash compactor. They don't make this anymore. It was like an exclusive thing. And yeah, Danielle got this for me.
Does it move?
Yes, it does.
That's
this
so
side
cool.
does, but I think
That's
I
cool.
messed up the building of this side, so I need to fix that. But yeah, it all goes in.
That's very cool.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Man. For me, it's one of two things. It's my Lego Rivendell,
Ooh,
which
good
actually
one.
goes down there as well. That took me all of last summer basically to build, and it was the best Lego experience I've ever had. And the second thing would be my pink skull up there.
Okay, I think I've asked this question before because you've talked about
What?
that. I just realized that. I'm pretty sure I've asked this question
Have we
before.
talked about this on the show before?
We have talked about this because
Okay.
it was like the pinkest pink.
It's the
like
pinkest pink, yeah.
Yeah,
What?
yeah.
Yep, and I got the paint in October, so at Target there was a skull available I could paint.
Wait, was I here for this?
Maybe you weren't.
Maybe
I don't remember
know.
this.
It's,
don't know.
This is the very, very short of it is years ago someone patented Vanta Black. Do you remember that? The blackest black
Yeah.
paint that like
Okay.
absorbed all color. Someone patented it. Someone in Europe, I think, they could have been French, was very upset about this. So they kind of like created like a whole line of paints that were the pinkest pink, the reddest red, the greenest green, the bluest blue.
Okay.
And so I ordered a batch of the pinkest pink, and I painted a human-sized skull.
Okay. Uh, it's really imagine you in being in my place where like there's a pink skull and everyone knows about it and assumes you know about it.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, and there's $5 this thing cost me.
You could make it a lamp if you
Oh, I
if you have
could.
LED in there.
2017
That would actually be funny if you
is
put
when
it
I
in
made
like
this.
the eyes or something. Yeah. All right. Well, that just about does it for
Alright.
this episode. Thank you all so much for listening. Just a reminder, we have a feedback form. So if you want to play along with the challenge or the end of the show question, or if you just have something you want to mention, there is a feedback form in the description or the show notes, wherever you're watching. We do have a YouTube video version if you want to check that out. It's over on the Mac Stories channel. Speaking of which, huge thank you to Mac Stories for having us. We are a Mac Stories podcast. Be sure to go check out all the other writings and podcasts and stuff going on there. I have no idea what Niléane is doing to the camera right now. I think this is a
I'm
good
just
place to wrap up.
advertising the video version.
Oh, okay. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a great day.
Bye bye.